Today we're in Chapter 1, Section 3, and this is the second part of the lecture. It's dealing with the idea of thinking like an economist. And as I discuss this, I want you to be guided with this question. How can using simple models help us understand how complex our economy actually is? So the first thing we understand is the fact that economists study how people satisfy those seemingly unlimited wants and needs through the careful use of scarce resources. Economists, therefore, are concerned with strategies that are going to help people make good decisions. And they have three main strategies that I'm going to have you look at. The first thing is an economic model. And an economic model is a simplified version of a complex concept or behavior expressed in the form of a graph or figure, equation, or diagram. Keep in mind that models can all be used, or they can be revised to make them better. If an economic model helps us make predictions that turns out to be right, the model could be used again. And if the predictions are wrong, the model might be changed or modified to help make better predictions for next time. It's important for us to realize that models are based off of assumptions, or things that we think are true. In general, the quality of a model is no better than the assumptions on which it's based. But a model with a few reasonable assumptions is usually easier to understand. In the case of the production possibilities curve, which we've talked about in the last section, we assume that only there are two goods that can be produced. In this example here, we have the output of pizza and the output of sugar. This made the model easier to illustrate and still allowed for us to discuss the concepts of trade-offs and opportunity costs in the past. The second thing economists use is a cost-benefit analysis. And a cost-benefit analysis is a comparison of the cost of an action to its benefits. I think for a high school senior, it's important to think about is the cost of prom worth the fun that you're going to have that night? Or the cost invested in the senior trip, is it going to be fun? Here's an example of a machine costing analysis. So for instance, if we were at the high school and we were talking about copy machines in the cafeteria, in the cafeteria or lunchroom, I mean the library. All you're looking at here, the costs are, if there was a new copy machine, it would cost $25,000. So less the $15,000 trade-in machine. So the cost of that would be about $10,000. You'd also have to look at installation and training. So the investment would be $11,500. The benefits in the first year would be reduced staff downtime, which could be $4,000, and this would be something you would have to figure out based off of analyzing or doing a time study of the worker's progress or usefulness. You'd also have a reduce in paper waste of $1,500, increased capabilities, which is an added benefit to the organization, or in this case the school, and you'd also have the fewer repairs, which are very costly. So when you looked at the cost, it was $11,500. The benefit over the year is $11,250. So when you look at the summary, right there when you do a cost-benefit analysis, the school district, by buying the new copiers, would lose about $250. Of course, to look at this cost-benefit analysis, you would have to go to year 2, to year 3, to year 4 to see if this benefit would actually come up. And obviously, the cost of the investment and the initial investment is going to help in the long run, not just in the short term. So again, cost-benefit analysis could be something as simple as looking at the prom or senior trip, or as complex as looking about making a giant decision or investment in your business. And the last thing that economists like to say is taking small steps. Incremental is the final strategy, and this can be made to help you make better choices. We probably already do this without even knowing it. And the example that we were talking about was the whole idea of a hot beverage. You start with a small sip to make sure that it's not too hot. If you're presented with a new food, you usually take a small bite to see if it's what you want. If any of these small steps are successful, then you can again keep going. Eventually the cost of another step will be greater than the benefit. So you stop drinking the beverage or eating the food. Meaning that if you continue to eat over and over again, you're going to eventually not get the same gratification out of the first bites that you had. So you take those small steps and you see, is this worth it? And then you move on. You can also think about like a date. Maybe you go on a small date, you go to a movie, the first date's okay, second date might get more serious, third date goes on more serious, and eventually you buy in or else get out. So what do we get out of the study of economics. The whole concept of the study of economics is it provides insight for how we become, how we earn different things. We look at how it changes the way our society can do better things with less, especially when you're looking at the whole idea of economics does more than just explain how people deal with scarcity. We know that we have much more out there. So in economics, you study how things are made, how things are bought, how things are sold, and how things are used. So we look at it on a very micro or small scale, but we can also use these small models to make it a bigger picture or a macro scale of macroeconomics. It provides insight to how incomes are earned and spent, how jobs are created, and how the economy works on a daily basis. The study of economics also gives us a better understanding of how things work, especially the free enterprise system, in which the consumers and private-owned businesses, rather than the government, make the majority of the what, how, and for whom decisions that we've talked about when we first started talking about the factors of productions in the previous section. Economics also is a study for citizenship. We talked about before in government how we do things. So most of today's political issues have important economic consequences. For example, is it important for the government to balance the federal budget? How can we best keep inflation in check? And what methods can we use to strengthen our economy? The study of economics is not going to provide you with clear-cut answers to these questions, but it's going to give us a better understanding of the issues and what they are and how they're involved.